Alright everybody, so we're out here in the back country and I've walked back with some split pine because today I'm going to show you guys how to do some feather sticks. Now this goes by many names, whether it's like tinder sticks, I've heard it called so many different things, but it's one of those skills you can practice around the campfire and it's really just going to make your fire building better. You can always use it to make a fire, but just to get started, it's always good to use a light, not very dense wood, and that's going to give you the foundation to be using different kinds of woods. Now the reason I packed in wood with me is because, as you can tell, the shrubbery around here isn't very thick for what I want to do. It's not very dense wood, but it's just not big enough for what I wanted to do. I would be out here making a lot of feather sticks just to get this little fire started for demonstration purposes, so I brought some wood with me. And this is just split pine, which is probably one of the better woods you can start with. Now you can split down a pine log, or you can take the limbs off the pine trees itself, as long as they're the low-lying limbs that are already dead, because again, you need dead wood to do this, and it needs to be dry. So I know this is dry because it was in log form and it was towards the middle of the pile, even though we got rain about a week ago. So only thing you're gonna need to do this is a sharp knife. Now it doesn't have to be a special kind of grind knife or even a special knife. It just needs to be sharp, and you need to have a little bit of knife working skills to use it. And then just get the fire started, you're gonna need a fire steel. So let's go ahead and get started. So like I said before, this is a pretty easy task to do. All you need is wood and two other pieces of equipment, besides the wood of course. So you need a knife, and you're also going to need a fire steel of some sort. Of course you could use a book of matches, but this kind of makes it more challenging and just improves your overall fire lighting abilities. And then when it comes over to the wood, you're definitely going to want a type of wood that is, again, smooth and a very open grain. That way it's easy to carve. Now you can go with a straight piece of wood. This is actually a larger piece of wood that I split down, like I've said, or you can do one that has a little bit of a wave in it. Now the benefit of using it if it has a wave, as you're carving down with the knife, where the wave comes back up and out, it'll actually start to collect all the feathers instead of you having to be very intricate with the knife and stop at the same spot every time. So if you're beginning, go ahead and use the curve of the wood, but if you kind of want to challenge yourself, go ahead and use the straighter parts. But the process is the same either way. And the same of what we're doing can be said about any fire lighting technique. Is the fundamentals of fire, or starting a fire at least, is you need a lot of surface area. Now to do that with a piece of wood, obviously you can't put a spark in this wood, it won't catch, it just simply won't. So what you're going to need to do is create surface area. That's where your knife comes in. So you want to put it against a good base. Ideally you'd have another piece of wood, but hello, desert, so all I have is a rock. And this is nice and stable, this isn't going to go anywhere. I'm going to brace it into my chest or to your arm. And when you're cutting, just make sure all your limbs are away from what you're doing. And you don't want to cut on the back of a wave, so that won't work well. And just because I'm showing you guys, I'll start here. And when you're doing this, it's important to remember your knife isn't staying at a 90 degrees. And going down. Doing that, you're going to snap off the feathers, and it's going to be quite frustrating. What you're going to do is put it at a little bit of an angle. Now, the angle can vary depending on your kind of knife, your style, and what is comfortable for you. But just along the lines of a knife at an angle, biting into the wood, and you're sawing. You're kind of sawing it down, almost like you're sharpening it, because when you're going like this, it'll just push it, and it'll dull your knife a little bit, and you run the risk of pulling the feathers off. So to get this started, just put your knife into the wood, and you can see the first ones probably won't be the best, but as you can see, our goal is to just make as much surface area as possible. Now if some of them fall off, that's alright, that's kind of why you're doing it on a surface. That way when you go to light your fire, you can just go ahead and pick these up, and that's going to be what you can use to start your fire as well. Almost make a bird's nest with just smaller shavings of the same piece of wood. Theoretically, you could actually do a fire with just one piece of wood. So just go ahead and keep doing this. And you want a good amount. I mean, you want your fire to last long enough to where you can transfer it to the fire itself. And you can also put your thumb, like I am, on the back of this just to give yourself more stability. It's good, especially if you want to do some more tight curls like I'm doing. And the more tight it is, but the thinner the wood is, almost like thinner than a sheet of paper, it's going to accept a spark easier, especially if it's more wet or humid conditions. And just the more air between it, the faster the fire will take, and the less hard of a time you'll have starting the fire later on. And you can go ahead and kind of spin the wood a little bit I'm going to go ahead and start a little bit further up here. And doing this just allows you to get more shavings together. And stopping at the same spot, of course, is what's going to allow you to get all these together. And you don't have to be fast at it. I mean, of course, you can just kind of go quickly up and down, and just shave them all off the piece of wood. But keeping them on almost acts like a giant match, and it allows you to catch different parts of your fire at the same time rather than putting everything on it. Just kind of changes the way you light a fire, and it can make it kind of easy. And again, you're just shaving off the pieces of wood until you get a nice little collection. And this is actually probably enough to light, so let's go ahead and we'll transition to this little fire pit, and we'll see if we can get this to take a spark. So here we have our piece of wood in the little fire ring. Of course, if you were actually starting a fire, you'd have all your tinders all the way down from the smallest to the largest so you can have a fire. But I just want to show you guys that this actually works, and it's one of the easier ways to get a fire started. So I'm just going to go ahead and kind of pick an area. This looks like it'll be better if I do it from this angle. And I'm just going to go ahead and brace it. And then go ahead and stick your fire steel into the bunch just like you would any other tinder. Oops, that little one caught. And you can see it'll catch with nothing more than the wood shavings itself. And of course, if you were doing this, you'd have all your fire and you'd be able to get that to catch and continue burning. So that is pretty much it to that technique. So I hope you guys enjoyed that video. It's definitely one of those skills that's good to learn and actually really enjoyable to share with someone. One of those ones you can practice around the campfire and make better as time goes on. So just remember, straight grain wood, doesn't matter if it's a hardwood or a softwood, and that's pretty much it. Cool thing to note, if you use pine and it has sap impregnated in the wood, it'll actually act like a match and will withstand wind to a certain extent. So that's kind of good to keep into memory banks. But if you like this video, please hit like and subscribe, and hope to see you guys in the future. I have some camping trips planned for later in this spring, so look out for those.